everyone. We have just been talking about fabulous APA and why it's so important. And I'm going to continue that lecture here. What I'm actually going to share with you is this PowerPoint that talks about some of the changes. Y'all are in a very interesting time because we really only change the manual every 10 to 15 years. And as you can see, it's been quite a while. So we have changed from the 6th to the 7th edition, and we're really trying to get all the students onto the 7th edition. Although many of your instructors still recognize you might have learned 6th edition, you are the first group to go through that your instructors will mandate that you are using the 7th edition. So if you had learned APA in the past, I thought going through this PowerPoint with some of the major changes would help solidify some of the comments and also make it just so it's a refresher and get you up to date. So let's start with references and in-text citations and some of the differences or what's changed. This is for books in particular. We used to include the place of publication, and we're not doing that anymore. It's actually, most of the changes they've made make it so much easier. So this is a basic book for the reference page. It's the author, the date, period, the title in italics, and just the publisher. That's it. That is the correct source citation for a book. Now, if we had multiple authors for this, we would list them out separated by a comma, and I will show you that. But this is the basic book. The title, the publisher, author, date, title, publisher. That's it. In-text citations have been shortened in the 7th edition, again, making it easier. They have 4 authors here. We no longer have to list all the authors, as I mentioned in the previous lecture. You just say Taylor et al. Comma. And the date. That lets me know there are other authors, and I can go to the references and see who those other authors were. But in my paper, I just need to use the Taylor. So it makes it nice and easy. All right, here's one on up to 20 authors. You used to be able to use an ellipsis after about 9, I think it was. We're not doing that anymore. You actually need to list all 20 authors. So you would list all those authors. If there were more than 20, you do an ellipsis and then list the last author. This happens very rarely, but it does happen. And I do want you to note just the format. Multiple authors, regardless of how many before the date, are separated with a comma. So we only use last names, first initials, comma. So Miller, TC, comma, Brown, MJ, comma. All of these are authors, and that's how you would cite multiple authors for a journal, for a book, anything like that. Citing web pages has changed, and again, they've just made it easier. The correct way to cite a web page is the author, whoever the author is. If there is not an author of the web page, you're going to go to the organization, the title of the organization, and I'm going to show you that in a little bit. But author, the date, and a lot of times with web pages, we cite the date we looked at the web page, or if it has a creation date, there, or when the article came out on that website or when it was posted, the title, and the link to the website that you got the information from. We used to say retrieved from. You don't need that anymore. So that's actually a question on your upcoming quiz. You do not need to put retrieved from. All you need now is the website link. We know you retrieved it from that link if that's the link you put there. So again, a lot of the changes they made are easier. DOIs, these digital object identifiers. You used to write the abbreviation DOI followed by the long string. And we don't want that. We're going to format them as URLs now with the HTTPS. So if a book or a journal article, mostly journal articles, has a DOI, that's what you're going to put at the end of the very end of the reference. I'll show you. Whoops. Got a little ahead of myself there. Citing ebooks. So books online. Used to be that you cited the version. We're not going to do that anymore. Author, last name, title, publisher, and the DOI. That's all you need. That's an ebook. All right. Here's one. A lot of you want to cite a TV series or film. How do you cite those? Well, this is where you can use executive producers as your authors. Who are the executive producers of the TV series? Who is the director of the film? Who's the host of the podcast? Yes, you can even consider an instructor in a webinar. That's me. You would cite check, K, and that would be how you would do that. So all of these types count as authors. They've updated some language rules as well, so let's take a look at those. One of the big changes is the singular they. So we are no longer having to use he or she or his or her to be gender neutral. We are going to use they or their as a singular neutral way of doing pronouns. Be sensitive to labels, obviously. They give some examples here. You wouldn't say the poor, people living in poverty. Transsexuals, you would say transgender people. And I think this is an interesting one because a lot of people like to try to put an ED on the end, and people are not transgendered. No, they are just, transgender stands alone. That is the correct term. So be careful and make sure you're using correct terminology. Here's also levels of specificity. Be specific, not just anyone over 65, but people aged 65 to 70. Not just Asian participants, Vietnamese, Cambodian, and Thai. Tell us specifically in those languages. So there's a couple new things. These are the student-specific guidelines. So again, in the 7th edition, there is now a student paper as well as a professional format. You can use any of these fonts now. It used to be the only acceptable font was Times New Roman. I am still very biased towards Times New Roman, and I think it is the best. So if you have me, you might want to use that. But all of these are acceptable now in the appropriate font sizes. So again, back to this notion of the professional paper versus the student paper. The student paper no longer has a running head whatsoever, which, yay, students are saved from the running head because they hate that anyway. The professional paper, however, does still have a running head, and I want you to be aware of that, and I'll show you an example in a little bit here. We talked about the updated heading styles, and I went through those with you, so I think you're pretty good on those. And let's see, these are just some recommended resource if you need to. Obviously, they talk about buying the APA manual. I don't think you need to do that, but I am going to move to a couple other sources now to help you. So one of the things that I like to do is have a quick guide in front of me, and I can post this as well. Most libraries make these, and this is 7th edition. Remember, you always want to be careful you're using 7th. This one looks at in-text citation with multiple authors. Remember, again, 2 authors, 3, we can go to at all. Now, again, group authors, or if you don't have an actual author, you use the organization name. This goes through journal articles. We have all the authors listed. Remember, you have to list till 20. So if you have 19 authors, you need to list that last name and first initial on all of them, the date, period. The title of the article. I do want to show you something very interesting here. You notice that we do not capitalize every word. You only capitalize the first word in the title, and if there is a subtitle after a colon, you can capitalize the first, but none of the rest of it. However, African American, Asian American, Latina, and Caucasian are proper nouns, so that's why they get capitalized. This is in the journal Psycho-Oncology. The journal title is always italicized. The volume, issue number, page numbers, and there's that DOI link. Okay, let's look at a web page. Remember when I said if there were no authors, you would use the organization's name? So this came from the American Nurses Association. There's no date on it. And that's how you indicate no date. And you would even do that similarly in text. And disaster preparedness is the title. Title's in italics. and the link to the website. Article. This is a news article, a newspaper. You see the authors. We use the ampersand, the date there, which again, you can be very specific in a news article for a newspaper on the date it came out. This is the name of the article, and the name of the periodical is the New York Times, and there's the link. And finally, this is a book. We have 2 authors here. The book is the title, italicized, and the publisher. This also has an edition, 4th edition, Jones and Barrett Learning, the publisher. And that's it. So this is a handy kind of small sheet that you might want to look up. I got it from CSU, where it goes through and kind of gives you everything about how to cite. There's so many websites that will help you through all this. So it's really a matter of having a good handout that gives you concise information that you need to know. So the other place you can go, of course, as I mentioned, is OWL Purdue. And you may want to do that as well. That's a very good source. All right, I know there's one other rule that I need to talk about that has not been discussed, and that's in references again. There are authors, articles and periodicals, books, print sources, electronics. I tried to give you some of the basics that you will run into. But one of the ways that you should, one thing you should know is 2 or more works by the same author, as well as an edited volume. And they're not giving me that as a sample source site, which drives me crazy. Let's go up to APA 7th edition and see if they give it to me in here with authors. I've got single author, 2 authors, 3 to 20, more than 20, a group, an unknown author. Let's talk about this. Again, unknown author. Then you might go to the organization. You can use the word anonymous if the work is signed anonymous. Kind of a weird one there, but they're still not giving me an edited volume on here, which is scaring me because that happens quite a bit. Let's look in books. Edited book. Very good. Anytime you have an edited book, basically that means somebody else is the one who organized it, but individuals wrote different chapters. This throws students a lot. So I'm running over here and grabbing my book. These are the editors. They put this together. So they're important. But each chapter, believe it or not, is written by different authors. So who do you put? These authors or these? Well, you actually are going to put first the authors of the article. So let's take a look at this one right here. Mallory T, 2017. This is the article in the book, or the chapter in the book that she wrote with the title. And here we have the editors listed. Okay, so if it's the editors that you're just citing from, you would put the editors. If it's a chapter in an edited book, you have to do both. And that's again what's happening here. You see author, title of the chapter in this editor's book. So this one is massive because you would have to cite the authors first of the article. Oh, look, I wrote this one. Let's do this one. So this would be Check, Canary, DeVette, Dykstra, and Snavely. We would cite that. We'd give the publication date. Then we'd have to say in B.H. Spitzberg, D.J. Canary, and H.E. Canary, and cite the title of the book. You will come across edited volumes, an article or chapter in an edited book. This is probably the one you will use the most. That's a little bit of an exception to the norm. All right, I think electronic sources you already know. You're putting, most of you are, it's going to be websites. You're never citing Wikipedia, so you don't need that. Here's a little more about DOIs. online news article. Pretty much you know how to cite that, the title, the date, the author, and of course always the link. And you do not have to say retrieved from. All right, I think I've covered most of what you will encounter, certainly enough to get you through the quiz. APA is, I always have to go back and reference APA. I have not memorized everything out there in the world that there is to cite. So you need some good tools and some good reference guides, which I have shared with you, and you should be able to master APA and do very, very well in the department with it. So enough on APA for now. If you have questions, definitely reach out and we'll talk about them.